Welcome, dear listener, to Dreamtime Science, a haven of peace beneath the vast, sleeping sky. Picture yourself in a small, cozy alcove, cushions gently stacked around you, dim candles casting flickering shadows on the old wooden shelves nearby. The air is still, and outside the stars watch quietly like ancient guardians. We are grateful you've chosen to step into this hush with us. If you feel moved by the gentle tales we share, a quiet like or subscription would be a welcome echo, and please do whisper in the comments where your quiet place may be. Now, before we begin, adjust the softness beneath your head. Close your eyes if you wish, and fill your lungs with a deep, slow breath. Together we will embark on a tender voyage where science takes on the silky cloak of night, inviting your thoughts to rest and your imagination to soar gently toward sleep. Shall we begin? Tonight, we drift softly into a quiet question whispered by the stars. Could our world be a shimmering simulation, a delicate dance of code beneath the cosmic hush? With a safe, pillow-soft distance, we'll glide very slowly, very gently, exploring this mysterious idea wrapped in wonder and curious dreams. Let's float together into this gentle mystery where science and imagination intertwine like a lullaby beneath the night sky. Your support through likes and subscriptions keeps this peaceful corner of knowledge illuminated. Share your time zone in the comments. I love mapping our constellation of dreamers. Take this moment to settle in. Wrap yourself in comfort, release the day's weight from your shoulders, and let your breath become as gentle as starlight. What does it really mean to say something is real? At first glance, this may seem like a simple question. We might think reality is all around us, solid, self-evident, trustable. We look at the trees, hear the birds, touch the earth beneath our feet, and feel certain these things exist outside of our minds. But when we slow down and contemplate more deeply, the certainty we place on this so-called reality begins to waver. How do we know that what we perceive, whether sights, sounds, textures, or even thoughts, is truly a direct representation of an external world? Or could it be that what we experience as reality is filtered, constructed, or even created by something within us? This question is ancient, reaching back through centuries of philosophy, science, and art. In some ways, it is the very foundation of how we understand everything, from the chair you might be sitting on to the distant stars you can see in a clear night sky. To gather meaning, knowledge, and certainty, humans have long sought to unravel the nature of reality, whether it is objective and absolute or subjective and fluid. Consider first the notion of perception itself. Our senses, sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell, act as windows to the world. Each sense converts physical stimuli into electrical signals that our brain interprets. But this process is neither instantaneous nor infallible. The light photons that hit your eyes must be absorbed by cells called photoreceptors and then transformed into neural signals. These signals travel along networks of neurons until they reach the visual cortex, where the brain begins to assemble an image. What happens in that brief moment between photons striking your eye and your awareness of seeing a tree is a complex interplay of biology and interpretation. This biological complexity means that what you see is not a passive recording of reality, but an active, constructed experience. Consider optical illusions, patterns or images that deceive the eye by tricking the brain into seeing something that's not there or misinterpreting shapes and colors. These illusions remind us that perception depends on our brain's processing, which can sometimes be fooled. Even more, individual differences arise in perception due to variations in sensory organs and neural architecture. Some people see colors differently. Others hear sounds others cannot detect. What seems obvious and stable, like the color blue or the sound of a bird call, is not quite as uniform as we might imagine. Beyond these sensory limits, our minds also introduce further interpretation based on context, expectation, past experience, and even culture. When two people witness the same event, their memories and recounting of it may differ, because each filtered those sensory inputs through their unique perspectives. The philosopher Immanuel Kant proposed that our minds impose certain structures on sensory data, such as space and time, to make experience possible at all. In other words, what we call reality is shaped by innate mental frameworks, rather than being a straightforward mirror of an external world. If our perceptions are actively constructed and inevitably filtered, then the reality we experience might not be a direct depiction of an objective world. This does not necessarily mean that nothing exists outside us, but it raises questions about how closely our experience corresponds to it. The world you see might be far different from the thing in itself, the true nature of objects as they exist independently of any observer, as philosophers like Kant have suggested. To explore this further, consider the strange and fascinating world of quantum physics, which studies reality at its tiniest scales. At this microscopic level, particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously, only settling into a definite state when observed. This probabilistic and non-deterministic nature of reality raises profound questions about the role of observation in shaping the state of things. It challenges the classical notion of a solid, independent reality existing permanently, whether or not anyone looks at it. In fact, some interpretations of quantum mechanics hint that consciousness itself might be entangled with the fabric of reality. This idea, while controversial and speculative, points towards a reality that is not entirely separate from the observer, but in some mysterious way co-created through the act of perception or measurement. It suggests that the world we inhabit might be more participatory than passive, inviting us to reconsider the assumptions underpinning our everyday experience. Moving beyond physics and philosophy, think about the way our brains compile sensory information into a coherent representation of the world. Neuroscience reveals that most of what we consciously perceive is not raw sensory input, but a constructed simulation inside our minds, created from fragments of data combined with memory and prediction. The brain functions much like a sophisticated computer running complex software, integrating information to build an ongoing model of reality that guides behavior. This model-building function helps explain phenomena like dreams, hallucinations, or even virtual realities created through technology. These experiences feel remarkably real to the person having them, even though they may have no direct correspondence with the external environment. In fact, the brain often has difficulty distinguishing between vivid imagination and actual sensory experience. This wonderful yet fragile construction of the mind continuously models the world so that we can act effectively in it. But it also shows that what we think of as reality is an ongoing mental process, not a static given. Carrying this thought further, consider how advances in technology have begun to blur the line between real and artificial experiences. Virtual reality headsets, for instance, immerse users in digital worlds with sights and sounds closely replicating natural environments. Although these digital environments are fabricated, the brain accepts and responds to them as though they were real. Our emotional reactions, our sense of presence, and even physical reflexes operate fully within these synthetic realms. This phenomenon again illustrates that reality, at least as experienced by our consciousness, is a mental construct susceptible to manipulation. The idea that reality could essentially be a kind of simulation or model is not new. Philosophers have entertained analogies such as Plato's allegory of the cave, where prisoners mistake shadows on a wall for reality itself, blind to the wider true world beyond. In modern times, this allegory finds resonance in computer simulations and virtual worlds, prompting questions. Could our perceived universe be a form of simulation running on some higher-order system? If so, what are the implications for understanding ourselves and the cosmos? Before jumping to conclusions, it is essential to understand that the term simulation here is used in a broad philosophical sense, not refers merely to computer-generated graphics, but to a fundamental kind of reality being generated by some entities or processes beyond our direct perception. This invites us to reconsider the criteria we use to judge what counts as real. Is something real only if it exists physically in a material sense? Or could digital or informational structures, if experienced as genuine and consistent by sentient beings, also be considered real? In questioning the nature of reality, another essential aspect arises: the limits of human knowledge. Our understanding is confined by sensory capabilities, cognitive frameworks, scientific models, and language itself, a tool we use to describe the world. These limitations mean that access to absolute reality might be forever beyond reach. Instead, what we can do is construct increasingly accurate, reliable models that predict and explain phenomena, adjusting them when new evidence emerges. The scientific method provides a powerful approach here. By forming hypotheses, testing predictions, and refining models in the light of experimental evidence, science builds a progressively deeper understanding of the universe. Yet even science recognizes the provisional nature of knowledge. The laws we consider fundamental today might be revised tomorrow. Reality, as science explores it, continually unfolds layers of complexity, reminding us that certainty is a goal never fully attained but always approximated. Particularly relevant to this discussion is the role of information. In modern physics and computation, reality is sometimes described as fundamentally informational, at its core made up of bits of data, patterns, or codes. Much like how a computer's simulation is ultimately a complex arrangement of digital information, some theories propose that the universe itself operates like an immense computational process. If that is the case, then what we perceive as physical matter and energy might be emergent properties of deeper informational structures. Exploring this notion further, information is not something separate from physical reality. Rather, it underpins it. Quantum information theory, for example, studies how information is represented and manipulated at quantum levels. It suggests that the deepest fabric of reality is coded, measurable in qubits rather than particles alone. This view challenges our classical materialistic assumptions and opens new questions about what being means at a fundamental scale. As we contemplate these ideas, the boundary between reality as we experience it and reality as it might be independent of us becomes increasingly blurred. The world might be simultaneously material, informational, interpretative, and perhaps even interactive. Our consciousness appears not just to witness reality, but to create and shape it in subtle ways. This interplay between observer and observed sits at the heart of ongoing scientific and philosophical inquiry. All of this sets the stage for a deeper examination of the simulation hypothesis, which proposes that reality as we know it might be an artificial construct generated by advanced computational processes beyond our current understanding. This hypothesis suggests that the universe and everything within it, including ourselves, could be running on codes, algorithms, or digital frameworks devised by some higher intelligence or future civilization. But before we explore the simulation idea itself, it is crucial to grasp that reality is much more than what our senses tell us at face value. It is a complex, layered phenomenon, deeply intertwined with perception, mind, information, and imagination. Recognizing this ambiguity invites a gentle humility, not to doubt the world out of hand, but to appreciate the profound mystery woven into our waking experience. As we move forward, we will journey through perspectives in physics, philosophy, neuroscience, and technology that challenge the straightforward notion of reality. You might find yourself reassessing what you take for granted, venturing into the fascinating space where science meets metaphysics. This is an invitation not only to question, but to marvel at the astonishing complexity behind the everyday appearance of things. Exploring whether what we perceive is truly real opens up a doorway into the very nature of existence, a doorway that beckons us to step beyond assumptions and glimpse a universe far richer and stranger than our instincts suggest. And it is through this inquiry that we lay the foundation for understanding some of the most extraordinary ideas yet conceived about our place in the cosmos. From here, we begin to untangle what it means to simulate reality, how advanced computation might mirror fundamental physical laws, and why some scientists and thinkers believe our reality could be a kind of digital artifact. But to make sense of this simulation hypothesis, we must first hold firmly to the insight that reality is not a given but a question, an unfolding mystery revealed one perception, one experiment, and one thought at a time. So as you drift towards sleep, allow your mind to rest in the space between what you know and what you wonder, between certainty and possibility. The reality you experience tonight may not be exactly what it seems, yet that very uncertainty is a wondrous gateway inviting deeper understanding. Soon we will explore how this gateway leads into a remarkable vision of reality as a grand cosmic computer, a virtual universe woven from the fabric of information itself. At its heart, the exploration of reality, be it everyday perception, quantum mysteries, or the simulation hypothesis, is a journey of peeling back layers of understanding, each revealing new complexities and wonders. In our quiet moments, pondering the nature of what we call real reminds us of the marvel of our own minds and the beautiful universe or construction that enfolds us. Whether real, simulated, or a blend of both, the reality we experience is the arena in which life unfolds, curiosity sparks, and meaning is found. So tonight, as thoughts gently drift and your breathing slows, hold this mystery with you. The reality you perceive is a precious, extraordinary tapestry woven by the senses, the brain, and perhaps strands of cosmic design far beyond our immediate understanding. It is a compelling invitation to wonder and to learn, to embrace the fantastic voyage into the nature of existence itself. And with that peaceful thought, may your mind rest in the comfort of the known and the marvel of the unknown, drifting effortlessly toward dreams enriched by the cosmos's enduring secrets. Building on the foundation we laid earlier, where we touched upon the very nature of reality and the intriguing thought that our universe might itself be a form of information, it's essential to now delve into the practical, tangible realm of computer simulations. Understanding simulations not only opens the door to powerful tools that scientists, engineers, and artists use each day, but also lights the way toward grasping how something as vast and complex as a universe, ours or any other, might be recreated digitally. So, let's journey gently but thoroughly through what computer simulations are, how they work, and why they are much more than just entertaining diversions on a screen. At its heart, a computer simulation is a method of recreating some aspect of reality or an imagined process inside a computer program, so that it behaves like the original system would under certain conditions. This might seem straightforward to some. After all, many of us have played video games or used apps that simulate flying an airplane or managing a city. But the science behind it is both subtle and profound. A simulation is not merely a picture or animation. It's a dynamic model governed by rules and equations that describe how elements within the simulation interact over time. To start with a very simple example helps ground the concept. Think of the classic video game Pong, the one with 2 paddles and a bouncing ball. The entire game is a simulation. The computer program contains explicit instructions: what happens when the ball hits a paddle, how the ball's position changes with time, how the score changes when a player misses. The game uses basic physics. The ball travels in a straight line until it touches something, then bounces off at an angle determined by the point of contact. This happens inside the memory of the computer, expressed as numbers representing position, speed, and direction, updated many times per second to give the illusion of continuous movement. Though Pong is crude compared to today's digital marvels, it already demonstrates 2 fundamental principles. First, complex behavior can emerge from simple rules, from just 2 paddles, 1 ball, and a basic bouncing rule. An engaging game emerges. Second, everything in a simulation exists in the language of mathematics and logic. The ball's path is described by coordinate positions updated according to velocity vectors and simple collision formulas. In essence, the simulation translates reality's physical rules into computations, a language the computer can understand and execute. Expanding from such a small-scale example, we see that computer simulations scale up both in complexity and purpose by encoding more detailed models of physical laws, chemical reactions, biological processes, or even social interactions. Scientists may simulate climate patterns using equations that govern fluid dynamics and thermodynamics to forecast weather or understand climate change. Economists simulate markets with agents following buying or selling rules to study how collective behavior shapes financial trends. Biologists simulate protein folding dynamics using quantum and classical physics combined, revealing vital insights into diseases and drug design. At the core, all of these simulations rely on something called algorithms, step-by-step instructions, human programmers or artificial intelligence design to process input data and produce evolving outputs. Algorithms act like recipes, guiding how the computer manipulates numbers, tracks changes, and decides what happens next. For example, the algorithm for a weather simulation might involve discretizing the atmosphere into a grid of mini-cells, each representing temperature, pressure, humidity, wind vectors, and so on. At every time step, the algorithm calculates how these variables influence one another, updating the whole grid repeatedly to model the atmosphere's nonlinear behavior. One important concept that often comes up in simulation science is emergence. Emergence describes how complex patterns arise from simpler components following basic rules. In the Pong example, the emergent behavior is the ball's motion. In the climate model, it might be the development of hurricanes or ocean currents. In social simulations, emergent phenomena can include the rise of population trends, traffic flows, or the spread of opinions. This shows us that simulations are not just about linear cause and effect. They are windows into dynamic systems where unanticipated complexity blooms naturally. We should also appreciate the difference between two key types of simulations, deterministic and stochastic. In deterministic simulations, the outcome is fully determined by initial conditions and rules, meaning if you start a simulation the same way twice, you get the exact same result. The Pong game is an example. On the other hand, stochastic simulations incorporate randomness or probabilistic elements to better reflect real-world uncertainty or quantum effects. When simulating a forest fire, for example, the algorithm might randomly decide which neighboring patch of trees catches fire next, according to likelihoods rather than certainties. This subtle injection of chance can make simulations more realistic when uncertainty or variability is intrinsic to the system. Another layer of richness comes from how time is treated in simulations. Time is usually broken into discrete chunks called time steps. The computer updates all the variables at each step like frames in a movie. This method is essential because computers cannot process continuous change directly. Instead, they approximate the evolution of systems by computing a sequence of snapshots. The smaller the time steps, generally, the more accurate the simulation, though this requires more processing power and time. And behind this process lie numerical methods, mathematical techniques for solving differential equations approximately, which govern many natural systems such as motion, heat flow, or electromagnetism. Let's take a moment to consider cellular automata, a particularly fascinating type of simulation with surprisingly simple rules that lead to extraordinary complexity. Imagine a grid of cells, each of which can be on or off. The state of each cell in the next time step depends only on its current state and the states of its neighbors according to predefined rules. One famous example is Conway's Game of Life, invented in the 1970s. From just a few simple instructions, cells live, die, or multiply depending on neighbors, the system can produce patterns that move around, replicate themselves, or vanish. This shows how simulations can model life's evolving complexity without explicitly programming every detail. These principles have influenced research in biology, physics, and computer science, pointing us toward deeper understandings of how intricate structures emerge from simplicity. Stepping back to the bigger picture, as computers have become exponentially more powerful, simulations have grown in both size and fidelity. It's helpful to introduce the concept of high-performance computing here. Instead of a single machine, simulations that study complex systems are now run on supercomputers, collections of thousands of processors working in parallel, sharing the computational load. This enables researchers to incorporate millions of variables and simulate entire galaxies, turbulent fluids, or cascades of particles colliding inside atom smashers. Without this computational horsepower, many modern breakthroughs in science and engineering would remain out of reach. One remarkable example of advanced simulation is the way physicists mimic the fundamental particles and forces described by the Standard Model. These simulations use lattice quantum chromodynamics, in which space-time itself is represented as a discrete grid. Computers calculate how quarks and gluons interact on this grid, approximating the behavior of the strong nuclear force that binds atomic nuclei. Although immensely challenging computationally, this approach has yielded predictions confirmed experimentally and deepened our understanding of matter's inner workings. It's a stirring demonstration of how simulations can act as virtual laboratories, allowing scientists to explore realms inaccessible to direct observation. Similarly, astrophysicists simulate galaxy formation, star birth, and cosmic evolution by encoding gravitational physics, gas dynamics, dark matter behavior, and thermodynamics into numerical frameworks. These simulations reveal how tiny density fluctuations in the early universe blossomed into the vast cosmic web of clusters, filaments, and voids we see today. The results from such simulations don't just mimic reality. They help refine our theories and guide observations toward new discoveries. Again, simulating a universe, though naturally limited by computational resources and our current knowledge, illustrates the potent potential of this field. Now that we have explored such diverse examples of simulation, it is worth reflecting on how they connect to the broader concept of reality and the suggestion that our universe might itself be a type of simulation. Unlike conventional programmed simulations that we can pause or restart, a simulated universe as a hypothesis posits a self-contained, self-consistent reality governed by its own code, if such code exists at all. To better grasp this, consider the simulation analogy from earlier. Running a digital game or complex model requires initial parameters like world size or physical constants and a set of rules. If our universe is a vast computational system, then what we perceive as physical laws might correspond to algorithms running at the deepest level, generating space, time, matter, and energy through ongoing information processing. Every particle interaction, quantum event, or cosmic expansion could reflect a computed update, akin to time steps in a cellular automaton, but unfathomably more complex and subtle. Of course, this is not to say the universe is simply a computer we could switch off or restart with a button. Instead, it suggests that underlying our physical reality there might be structures and processes intelligible in terms of information theory and computation. It's a profound idea, inviting us to rethink the fundamental nature of existence as potentially informational rather than purely material. Yet such a proposition invariably raises challenging questions about how simulations differ from base reality. If we can learn how to simulate galaxies or particles, can we ever detect whether we ourselves exist inside a simulation? This remains a lively debate among philosophers, physicists, and computer scientists. Crucially, understanding what simulations are and their power and limitations helps us approach these questions thoughtfully. For instance, every simulation depends on simplifying assumptions and approximations. Full fidelity of a real system is rarely achievable due to computational constraints and unknowns. Furthermore, simulations do not spontaneously create new physical laws. They implement known theories that humans provide. Could a simulated universe create self-aware beings who themselves develop simulations? This nested hierarchy introduces infinite regress, blurring lines between simulation and reality in fascinating ways. In practical terms, studying simulations offers both exceptional insights and humbling lessons. It highlights how complex realities can be modeled, predicted, and controlled through mathematics and computation, yet also where our knowledge and tools reach their limits. Simulations bring us closer to understanding, but they also remind us of the mysteries inherent in complexity and consciousness. At a deeper level, computer simulations invite us to appreciate that reality itself might be seen through multiple lenses, a physical one grounded in matter and energy, and an informational one grounded in patterns, data, and dynamic processes. This dual perspective enriches our quest to comprehend everything from atomic particles to entire galaxies, encouraging humility and curiosity as we continue exploring. As we conclude this exploration of how simulations function, from the simple rules of a bouncing ball to the staggering complexity of cosmic evolution, we prepare to examine the next piece of the puzzle: how these simulations relate to our own perception of reality and consciousness. In the coming discussion, we will gently unravel the relationship between simulation and experience, asking whether the awareness that illuminates our universe could arise in a purely informational framework. Such reflections blend science with philosophy, yet remain grounded in the careful reasoning and evidence that simulations teach us. They challenge us not to discard what we know, but to expand it, embracing a future where computation and reality interlace in ever more wondrous ways. So, as your mind drifts, let these thoughts ripple softly, how the digital echoes of a simple game stretch across to the mysteries of existence itself, the silent story of information unfolding quietly beneath everything we see and feel. And with that, we edge closer to understanding not only simulations, but the very fabric of what it means to be. Building on our journey through the nature of reality, as we've glimpsed in those earlier explorations, we now turn to one of the most provocative ideas in modern philosophy and theoretical physics, the simulation hypothesis. It proposes something quite extraordinary, that our entire universe, with its vast galaxies, intricate life forms, and even our own thoughts, might be an enormous, perfectly crafted simulation inside a grand cosmic computer program. At first, it sounds like something out of science fiction, yet this hypothesis is taken seriously by a number of scientists, philosophers, and technologists. Let us unravel this idea carefully and calmly, examining its origins, the arguments supporting it, those that challenge it, and the fascinating implications it holds for how we understand existence itself. The simulation hypothesis is, in a sense, a modern rendition of an ancient philosophical question: how do we know what is real? Philosophers such as René Descartes, centuries ago, pondered the possibility that everything we perceive could merely be a dream or an illusion, a deceiving force tricking our senses. In recent decades, however, advances in computing technology and theoretical physics have granted these age-old questions a new and intriguing framework. The proposition is no longer just philosophical, but scientific and technological. The universe itself might be an output of a powerful computational process. This hypothesis gained widespread popular attention largely through the work of Nick Bostrom, a philosopher at the University of Oxford, who formalized the argument in a seminal paper published in 2003. Bostrom proposed a trilemma, three possibilities, where at least one must be true. First, almost all civilizations at our level of technological development go extinct before they can create what are called ancestor simulations, high-fidelity simulations of entire civilizations or universes. Second, if such civilizations do reach advanced technological stages, almost none are interested in creating such simulations. Third, we ourselves are almost certainly living in a computer simulation. The reasoning behind this is subtle but worth unpacking. Imagine a civilization so advanced they can create extremely realistic simulations indistinguishable from reality. Such simulations could include the conscious minds of simulated beings who believe in their own genuine existence. Now, if such civilizations exist and run many ancestral simulations to study their history, it stands to reason that the number of simulated minds would vastly outnumber the number of original, real minds. Statistically, the argument goes, it would be far more likely that any given conscious mind, ours included, is part of a simulation rather than the original reality. A central pillar to this claim is the idea that consciousness can be simulated, or at least that the consciousness of simulated beings is indistinguishable from that of us. This is one of the most challenging aspects to reckon with. Could a sufficiently advanced computer recreate not just the external universe, but the inner experience of being you or me? While no one yet fully understands consciousness well enough to settle that question, many computer scientists and philosophers lean toward it being possible in principle, if not yet in practice. From a scientific perspective, this idea intersects with certain cutting-edge theories in physics and cosmology. Some researchers have even begun to ponder whether the laws of physics themselves show signs of information processing or digital granularity. For example, the Planck length, a fundamental scale in quantum physics, is often interpreted as a smallest possible unit of space, hinting at a discretized structure of the universe, akin to pixels on a screen. Others have proposed that constants of nature or the behavior of particles might reveal signatures of computational rules underneath reality. The notion of simulation also finds echoes in the language of quantum mechanics, where the universe behaves probabilistically until a measurement occurs, somewhat like a computer rendering only parts of a program as they are needed, conserving processing resources. Some have speculated whether quantum indeterminacy could point toward an underlying computational substrate that calculates outcomes only as observers come into effect, much like a video game engine rendering frames only for the player's viewpoint. On the other hand, skepticism naturally arises with equal force. One common critique questions the feasibility of such an all-encompassing simulation, the sheer amount of computational power needed, considering every atom, every photon, every living being in the universe, would be unimaginably vast. Even if an advanced civilization could harness enormous energy sources, whether such resources could manage a fully detailed, real-time universe simulation remains uncertain. Others argue from a philosophical standpoint, if we are simulations, what does that mean for the concept of reality? Does simulated life have less value? This leads to deep ethical and metaphysical queries. If the universe is digital, does that make it less significant or merely differently structured? In fact, some proponents say that simulation need not diminish our subjective experiences or moral valuations. Instead, it might broaden how we conceive existence, challenging us to look beyond the material and into the informational fabric from which reality emerges. There is also an argument rooted in epistemology, how we know what we know. If we accept the simulation hypothesis, do we lose the ability to trust our scientific observations? Not necessarily. Some theorists propose that even if we live in a simulation, the laws encoded in our universe are rigorous and consistent enough that understanding them remains meaningful. Science, they suggest, is simply the exploration of the rules imposed by the cosmic program underlying our reality. This leads to a fascinating implication. If the universe is a simulation, could it be possible to find clues or glitches that reveal its nature? There has been speculative work in this vein. For instance, physicists analyzing high-energy cosmic rays have looked for possible anomalies that might indicate underlying computational constraints dictated by lattice-like structures. As of yet, no definitive evidence has emerged, but the approach continues to inspire unique experimental proposals. One might wonder about the motives of a hypothetical simulator. Why would a civilization create such a vast and detailed simulation? The answers vary. Some posit purely scientific curiosity, similar to humanity building climate models or virtual environments to understand complex systems. Others imagine cultural or entertainment purposes. Ancestor simulations could be like highly advanced reenactments of history or immersive storytelling on a cosmic scale. And then there are more philosophical or theological speculations, likening the simulator to a creator figure, although these ideas remain speculative and beyond empirical proof. What about the nature of free will if we are simulated? This question troubles many who find comfort in the feeling of autonomy. If a simulator runs a program controlling every particle and event, does that reduce our freedom? Here again, the answer is subtle. A simulation could incorporate stochastic processes, meaning some outcomes are probabilistic, allowing for unpredictability. Moreover, from within the simulation, the experience of making choices could still retain its authenticity, since the mind's subjective experience remains intact regardless of underlying determinism or computational algorithm. The hypothesis also invites us to rethink the relationship between information and matter. If everything is part of a computational system, then the fundamental building blocks of the universe might be units of information, a concept sometimes called digital physics. Instead of atoms as tiny particles, the universe could be more like an elaborate pattern of bits emerging into physical phenomena as a kind of cosmic software. This viewpoint harmonizes intriguingly with discoveries in quantum information theory, where the smallest physical processes are described in terms of qubits and informational states rather than just particles. It's instructive to reflect on the history of technology itself, as our current trajectory hints at why the simulation notion is taken seriously. Computers have evolved from bulky machines capable of simple calculations to powerful devices that render incredibly detailed virtual worlds and simulate complex biological processes with high fidelity. Given this, it's natural to imagine future civilizations continuing this trend on an unprecedented scale. If we are spending time and resources developing virtual realities, it's plausible that more advanced beings, millions or billions of years ahead, have transcended into creating entire simulated universes. Our own progress in artificial intelligence adds another layer to this discussion. Machines learning and adapting, showing behaviors once thought unique to living minds, challenge the clear boundary between natural and synthetic consciousness. If AI can approach or exceed human-like cognition, the notion that consciousness can be instantiated in a computational substrate gains weight, further legitimating the possibility of simulated minds. Yet, it's important to keep in mind that the simulation hypothesis remains at present a speculative framework, not a proven fact. The beauty of science is its openness to inquiry and doubt. Claims must be tested, refined, or discarded based on evidence. What the hypothesis does is stretch our imaginations, inviting us to ponder what reality means and encouraging innovative ways to explore the universe, whether by new experiments or philosophical reflection. It is also worth walking gently through the emotional landscape this hypothesis can open up. The idea that reality might be a program and we mere patterns in cosmic code can evoke feelings ranging from awe to existential anxiety. It can challenge deeply held notions of meaning, identity, and our place in the cosmos. But it also offers a certain liberation, freeing us from some traditional constraints and inspiring us to seek knowledge not just at the physical level, but as explorers of information, mind, and reality itself. This shift in perspective bears resemblance to other paradigm shifts in science's history, from accepting the Earth as the universe's center to embracing a vast expanding cosmos, from classical physics to the probabilistic world of quantum mechanics. Each advance expanded our horizon and reshaped understanding, and the simulation hypothesis may be a continuation of this profound journey. Even without definitive proof, the hypothesis inspires technological and scientific research, philosophical debate, and artistic creativity. It pushes thinkers to explore the very nature of consciousness, the limits of computation, and the structure of the cosmos. Whether one embraces or rejects the idea, it opens a door toward deeper reflection, making us question the fabric of existence in a methodical, gentle way. As we contemplate this grand proposal, one last thought emerges about the role of curiosity in human experience. Our desire to understand whether we are real or simulated embodies a fundamental aspect of being sentient, the capacity for self-reflection and wonder. It's a testament to how remarkable consciousness is, that we can ask such profound questions, bridging philosophy, physics, and emerging technologies. This brings us naturally to consider another frontier in understanding reality, how we might detect or influence the underlying code of our universe, if it exists. How might quantum mechanics or future technological advances help us interact with or reveal the architecture of reality? The questions grow richer and invite us deeper into the mystery where our journey will continue. Building on everything we've explored about the simulation hypothesis, the idea that our reality could be an incredibly sophisticated virtual construct, it's natural to turn inward and wonder not only about the nature of existence, but about the profound personal and societal implications if such a scenario were true. How would this knowledge, or even the strong possibility of it, reshape our understanding of ourselves, the world around us, and the choices we make each day? This reflection opens a fascinating path toward how the simulation hypothesis might influence ethics, philosophy, psychology, and culture, gently inviting us to reconsider what it means to live a meaningful life. First, consider the question of reality itself. If our universe is a simulation, does that diminish the experiences we have or the emotions we feel? It might seem at a glance that acknowledging a simulated essence could reduce the authenticity or value of life. After all, if everything we know is part of a sophisticated program, could our joys, sorrows, hopes, and dreams be somehow less real? But here, it's important to appreciate the subtle distinction between ontological reality, what fundamentally exists, and experiential reality, the reality we perceive and interact with. Whether our world is base reality or simulated, our consciousness experiences it as real. Our sensations, thoughts, and interactions have real consequences on our minds and bodies. There is a deep authenticity in the emotions stirred, the relationships formed, and the discoveries made, regardless of the underlying fabric of existence. Reality does not lose its richness simply because it's layered, coded, or crafted by an intelligence beyond our current comprehension. Just as in stories we tell or movies we watch, the emotions evoked by a dramatic film are intensely real while watching, even though we know the characters and worlds are fictional. The brain's experience of empathy, suspense, and joy during these moments is genuine. In a similar way, if our lives unfold inside a simulation, our experiences are genuinely lived and profoundly meaningful from our perspective. The distinction lies in perspective. Something can be constructed and still deeply felt, deeply real to the conscious self. This insight invites us to re-evaluate a fundamental philosophical question: what grounds morality and meaning? Many traditional views base morality on the nature of ultimate reality, whether it is divine, material, or something else. If reality is a simulation, does that change the foundation of ethics? It need not. Whether or not we exist inside a cosmic computer, the choices we make influence others, affect our own well-being, and shape the communal world we inhabit. The feelings of compassion, fairness, kindness, and responsibility remain essential because they impact the lived experience of conscious beings, regardless of the universe's structure beneath it all. In fact, reflecting on the simulation hypothesis might deepen the sense of responsibility in some ways. If we imagine that an advanced intelligence or civilization is running this simulation, it might be tempting to think, if there's a controller, then my actions don't really matter. But on the contrary, the presence of such a controller, if any, does not negate the meaning of our choices. The simulation's rules, likely vast and intricate, could include the development of free will, learning, and growth. In this sense, our lives could be more like a rich interactive narrative where every decision matters profoundly to the unfolding story. Crucially, living as though our choices have meaning and impact cultivates well-being and connection, which are central to human dignity and flourishing. The simulation hypothesis also invites us to revisit the long-standing question of free will. If reality is designed with specific algorithms and structure, what does that imply about our agency? Scientific and philosophical discussions of free will often revolve around determinism, the idea that every event has causes set in motion before it. At first glance, the simulation might seem like the ultimate deterministic system, governed by pre-written code. However, whether or not we inhabit a simulation, the complexity and unpredictability within it could be so vast that from our perspective, choice and spontaneity feel very real. Think about advanced video games or artificial intelligences that simulate complex behavior. Inside those systems, simulated characters can exhibit varied responses, adapting to new situations in ways that seem spontaneous, even if ultimately guided by underlying code. Translating this to our lives helps us understand that our perception of free will might coexist with a foundational structure in profound ways we don't yet fully grasp. So rather than negating freedom, the simulation hypothesis may inspire a more nuanced understanding of free will, one that recognizes constraints and conditions while honoring genuine decision-making and growth. On a more existential level, some might find a comforting perspective in the simulation idea. If our universe is a constructed reality, might it be possible to eventually learn about the creators or even influence the system? This aligns with the age-old human thirst for knowledge and control over fate. Scientists, thinkers, and curious minds throughout history have sought to uncover deeper truths about reality, physics, metaphysics, philosophy, all tools that, if we are simulated, could be ways of hacking or advancing understanding of the program we inhabit. This imaginative potential sparks hope that knowledge itself is limitless. It also aligns with why science and philosophy hold such profound importance, because through inquiry, careful observation, and creative thinking, we edge closer to understanding the fabric of existence, however complex or concealed it might be. The pursuit of wisdom remains vital and relevant, whether the cosmos is base reality or a carefully crafted simulation. Yet, with every profound question comes a measure of humility. If our experience of the universe might be part of something greater we cannot yet fully perceive, it reminds us of how much remains unknown and mysterious. This humility can be a gentle invitation to remain open-minded, curious, and patient in our search for truth. It encourages us to acknowledge the limits of human understanding, while embracing the joy in discovery and the beauty of the unknown. There's also a very human psychological dimension to consider. How does thinking about living in a simulation affect the mind and spirit? For some, it might initially provoke disorientation, doubt, or even existential anxiety. Questions about authenticity and purpose often trigger big emotions. Yet, reflecting calmly on these ideas can also provide reassurance and perspective. Recognizing that our sense of self and reality goes beyond mere physical substrate allows room for wonder and curiosity to flourish without panic. In fact, the simulation hypothesis can be a powerful tool for mindfulness, a subtle reminder that the present moment, with its sights, sounds, and sensations, is precious regardless of the ultimate nature of reality. It can inspire gratitude for conscious experience itself, for the chance to observe, feel, and connect. Like other great philosophical or spiritual traditions, it calls us to embrace the gift of awareness, whatever its origin. Looking outward from the individual, society would also likely change if the simulation hypothesis captured widespread attention and acceptance. Humans are social creatures, and shared beliefs shape cultures deeply. If enough people began to live with awareness of the simulation possibility, we might see shifts in priorities and values. For example, some might emphasize cooperation, kindness, and community even more, seeing that every connection has unexpected depth and importance. Others might pursue intellectual exploration with renewed vigor, hoping to uncover clues about the creators or the structure of the simulation. Art, literature, and storytelling would naturally reflect and explore these themes, weaving complex narratives about layers of reality, identity, and creation. This cultural ripple could spark new philosophies, ethical frameworks, and spiritual perspectives, enriching humanity's collective imagination and wisdom. It's also possible that practical changes would arise. Perhaps institutions might develop new approaches to education that integrate the profound uncertainty and openness inspired by the simulation idea, encouraging critical thinking and humility alongside curiosity. Technology might accelerate in fields like virtual reality, quantum computing, and artificial intelligence, as humanity strives to understand and emulate the nature of simulated worlds more fully. On a more cautionary note, the acceptance of the simulation hypothesis should be balanced with grounded, responsible thinking. While intriguing, it's important not to let the concept foster nihilism or detachment, a feeling that nothing matters because this is all simulated. Such attitudes could undermine social bonds, empathy, and motivation to solve real-world problems. The lived realities of suffering, joy, and growth remain profoundly relevant, whatever their deeper cause. Ethics, compassion, and collective care hold their vital significance. Instead, the simulation hypothesis can inspire a kind of wonder-filled engagement with life, a recognition that even if we are players within a grand design, the game itself is meaningful, vibrant, and worthy of respect. Our awareness of the simulation possibility may encourage a deeper appreciation for the mystery and complexity of existence rather than diminish it. Interestingly, this idea also connects us to long-standing philosophical questions explored in various traditions across cultures. The notion that reality might have layers beyond what our senses perceive echoes ancient teachings, from Plato's allegory of the cave to Hindu and Buddhist philosophies about illusions, Maya, and awakening. The simulation hypothesis, in this modern scientific and digital form, can be seen as a continuation of these timeless inquiries, blending the insights of technology, cosmology, and metaphysics. This linkage to historical and spiritual traditions reminds us that humanity has always grappled with the nature of existence, triggered by curiosity, awe, and a desire for meaning. Our current digital age adds new language and frameworks to this journey. Understanding that we may be living in a kind of profound story, whether real in the classical sense or constructed, connects us to a long lineage of seekers, thinkers, and dreamers. And as we consider how our lives might change under the assumption that we are in a simulation, it's also useful to explore how that knowledge might impact scientific inquiry itself. Would scientists pursue their work differently? Perhaps they would develop novel theories and experiments designed to detect subtle signatures or anomalies within the universe, quanta of information or patterns hinting at the presence of design or coding. Research might increasingly emphasize the interface between physics, computer science, and information theory as complementary lenses for understanding reality. In fact, some, like the physicist James Gates Jr., have observed intriguing mathematical structures in particle physics equations resembling error-correcting codes used in digital information processes. Such suggestions hint at potential intersections between fundamental physics and computational frameworks, prompting new hypotheses and experiments. Moreover, if simulation hypothesis research progressed, it might inspire closer cooperation across scientific disciplines, philosophy, and even theology. Each of these domains offers unique perspectives on reality, meaning, and existence. Embracing interdisciplinary thinking could lead to richer, more holistic insights, reflecting the complexity of the question itself. All this reflection gently invites us to hold our beliefs with both conviction and openness, appreciating that our best understanding of the universe may continue to evolve. Whether we ultimately find definitive evidence of a simulation or not, the very act of pondering such possibilities enriches human culture and thought. Perhaps most deeply, reflecting on the simulation hypothesis encourages a reawakening to a fundamental truth, that each moment of conscious experience, with its cascades of thought, emotion, and perception, is beyond all measure precious and unique. Whether woven from quantum threads, digital code, or divine breath, existence is a mystery that invites our reverence, our curiosity, and our care. In light of this, we might find ourselves more motivated to live authentically and intentionally, to cherish relationships, and to seek wisdom and kindness. These choices transcend technical questions about the fabric of the universe, rooting us in timeless human values that foster joy and build resilience. The possibility of living in a simulation is not a call to despair or meaninglessness, but a gentle invitation to embrace wonder, recognize the beauty in complexity, and cultivate a mindful presence that honors both what we know and what we have yet to discover. As our understanding deepens, we realize that the mystery of reality is not a puzzle to rush to solve, but a vast and ongoing story, one in which each of us participates, with consciousness shimmering in the quiet glow of curiosity and awe. So, even as we rest tonight, contemplating the vast unknown, it is comforting to know that our experience is real to us and that our lives matter immensely in the unfolding enigma of existence, simulated or not. With this continued reflection, let us carry forward a gentle openness to mystery and an enduring commitment to live with kindness, creativity, and wonder, a fitting response to the profound questions raised by the simulation hypothesis as we navigate the evolving landscape of knowledge and meaning. As our journey through the shimmering veil of the simulation universe drifts to a close, may your thoughts float gently like a comet tail fading into the hush of space. Rest now in the quiet wonder of possibilities, and when you return, we'll explore more cosmic mysteries beneath the soft glow of Dreamtime skies.